Welcome to Child Abuse Awareness with Darlene J. Clark.
Hello, everyone. I'm sorry for running a little late. I just got in from the grocery store, unloaded, and I took another friend grocery shopping and loaded the groceries for him and stuff. And so I'm running a little late. It's hot out there today, but it's a blessed day for sure. Hope everyone's having a good day. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is the use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips and balance in favor of fair use. Hope everyone's having a great day today. It's hot out there for sure. I'm going to put trigger warning because this is going to make a lot of people mad with these couple cases where they're coming back and they're suing the people that are telling. So I'm looking for the trigger warning thing, and I guess I have moved it. Without further ado, let's get this show on the road. How's everyone doing today? Please come in and say hello. Then it gets full screen here. Okay. This is a terrifying new court ruling threatens to silence survivors. This is by Stephanie Trendell, August 11, 2025. And this is at endsexualexploitation.org. Again, it is endsexualexploitation.org. It's one of the articles that she had written. When 19-year-old Caitlin Faber accused Kobe Bryant of rape, she faced a hostile public that was more invested in protecting the reputation of the beloved NBA star than supporting a survivor and fairly evaluating claims of abuse. Public support for Bryant was overwhelming. Fans and commentators questioned Faber's credibility, suggesting ulterior motives such as financial gain or attention. Since Andrew Tate and his brother Tristan Tate were charged with sex trafficking and rape, many in the public have rushed to their defense. Tate's supporters flood social media with harassment towards the survivors, threatening to hurt or kill them. One even went as far to post the address of a survivor's place of work. Wow. The Tate brothers themselves have viciously defamed the survivors and sued them for millions of dollars in an attempt to intimidate them into silence. In the sex trafficking trials of music mogul Sean Diddy Combs, the survivor witnesses were publicly humiliated on the stands before being denied justice. The defense engaged in predictable victim blaming and even forced the survivor witnesses to read out aspects of their sexual history to the court. What do all these stories have in common? In each case, female survivors who were victimized by men in a position of power were harassed, smeared, humiliated, and even threatened. And we all know it happens to guys too, and women threaten the guys, and there's guys that threaten guys, and such, and it knows no gender really. But this is just a couple of the stories. And there are countless more stories exactly alike. Historically, when survivors of sexual abuse and exploitation make their names public, they are met with harassment, blame, challenges to their credibility, and sometimes even violent threats to their life. I know when people went to try to support me, I had a brother telling everybody that, "Give me your address. I'll go to your butt house and beat your butt." You know, so he was defending the perpetrators. The risk is especially heightened for survivors of sex trafficking, who are often dealing with organized criminals. Further, sex traffickers endure serial rape at the hands of sex buyers and are therefore at risk from not one abusers, but from hundreds and sometimes thousands. Got that right. For these reasons, survivors of sex trafficking do not typically have to reveal their identities to the public in order to pursue changes in court, except apparently in Nevada. Wow. In Nevada, a woman who was sex trafficked in illegal brothels and filed a lawsuit against the brothels and the government entities overseeing them, including a powerful man named Lance Gilman, a pimp brothel owner who served as Story County Commissioner until recently. Wow. Despite prostitution being legal in Nevada, the brothels at which this woman was sex trafficked subject subjected her to repugnant living and working conditions, including restrictions on when she could leave the property, forced searches of her belongings, including her phone, withholding of her necessary medications, hospitalization due to the food that she was served, and even violent threats from sex buyers. The brothel owner snatched 50% of Jane Doe's earnings, and over time, she accrued massive amounts of debts due to the excessive fines the owners imposed on her for failing to follow the ludicrous rules they put in place. That just keep you there and in bondage, okay? But a judge has ruled that this survivor, who has been pseudonymed as Jane Doe, must now disclose her identity to the public if she wishes to move the case forward. Wow. Further, the judge has denied the survivor a protective order which would outline the conditions under which the defendants and her alleged sex traffickers could share her private information. Wow. Knowing the ways the public has treated survivors of sexual abuse and exploitation, why would Jane Doe want to publicly disclose her name and personal information so she can be shamed and harassed by supporters of her abuser? So dangerous sex buyers can track her down and stalk her? Probably, possibly end up killed by these people, okay? Since Jane Doe filed her lawsuit, there have been cases of sex buyers trying to identify who she is. The threat to her life and well being is not theoretical. The order by this judge has disastrous ramifications for survivors of sexual abuse and exploitation everywhere because it discourages them from speaking up and pursuing claims against their abusers. Come on, y'all, step up and help this survivor. Come on now. Get Nevada to stop this nonsense, right? A ruling like this forces survivors to choose between their personal safety or holding their abusers to account. The accused sex traffickers had threatened to shame Jane Doe in the press. The defendants, i.e., is accused of sex traffickers, that's the defendants as the sex traffickers, already have a right to learn Jane Doe's name later on in the case so that they can attempt to collect evidence against her. So why do they care whether or not her name is also revealed to the public? Disturbingly, they already told us the answer, so they can shame Jane Doe in the press. The defendants argue, and since plaintiffs' attorneys have been so keen on generating press coverage for this abusive suit, it seems only fair that the press should know who to examine in its efforts to ferret out the truth. Not right. The interest of the press and the press's ability to research the litigant's background, which may bear on matters pertaining to credibility and plaintiff's potential motivations for suing, are also implicated. They put her in a bad place. This is a very thinly veiled threat to weaponize the press for classic slut shaming of survivors of sexual crimes. Unfairly sexual abuse and exploitation is the only crime for which the public and even the courts often believe the victim's personal background has bearing on whether or not their claims of abuse are valid. If a person is robbed, we do not question their personal history. We judge whether or not the crime happened based on evidence. But for some reason, society still thinks that if a survivor has sexually promiscuous past or is otherwise not a perfect victim, then the abuse never happened. Tragically, the judge validated the defendant's wish to sic the press on Jane Doe, saying, "The public has an interest in assessing Doe's credibility, especially when the underlying claims arise in the context of a legal prostitution regime enacted by an elected legislator." But simply, the judge believes that the safety of the plaintiff is secondary to the need for her to be tried in the court of public opinion. But the only time the opinions of the public should matter in a court case is when citizens are selected to be on the jury. Otherwise, public opinion should be irrelevant. You're putting in her harm's way just to shut her up. That's what you're doing. While the judge states that the pseudonymity can be granted in circumstances to protect a person from harassment, injury, ridicule, or personal embarrassment, she inexplicably stops short of acknowledging that survivors of sexual exploitation face precisely these adversities when coming forward, most especially when accusing influential public figures like Lance Gilman. Even though the defendants have implicitly threatened to expose Jane Doe to this type of public shaming, the defendants have threatened to retaliate with lawsuits. Beyond shaming her in the press, the defendants are also eager to weaponize lawsuits to retaliate against Jane Doe. They complain that they would not be able to retaliate against Jane Doe with lawsuits if she wasn't forced to disclose her name early in the case, since they expected to be dismissed before discovery was underway. And since the claims against the public entities were dismissed with prejudice, these defendants never will learn the identities of these previous anonymous party plaintiffs. As such, it is impossible to know if counterclaims are available against these anonymous plaintiffs. And plus, you got to think about this. Yeah, this is legitimized prostitution in Nevada, okay? But she is being trafficked. They are stealing all her money, okay? That's the difference between legal and so if that's what their choice, if they wanted to be, whatever. But I'm saying, this they are trafficking her. See that? They are keeping her. They are keeping her money. They are making all these bonds up. They're not letting her be able to survive with the money. They're taking the majority of it. We have seen in the case of Andrew and Tristan Tate suing their victims is a common intimidation tactic for powerful abusers to sue less wealthy, vulnerable survivors in an attempt to silence them. The fact that the accused sex traffickers are so open about wanting Jane Doe to potentially suffer this type of retaliation and the judge still declined to protect her anonymity is nothing short of abhorrent. You're not only protecting her, you're protecting her life by not telling. You're putting her life in danger. Again, Virginia Guthrie. Jane Doe's concerns of retaliation grossly mischaracterized. The brothel defendants flagrantly mischaracterized Jane Doe's concerns about retaliation as a fear that she won't be acceptable for work in brothels again if her identity is known. Consequently, they argue that this fear is invalid because Jane Doe has already left the sex trade. But Jane Doe never said she wanted pseudonymity, so she could continue being prostituted in the exploitative brothels she escaped from. She wanted pseudonymity to keep herself safe from harassment, public smearing campaigns, and possibly even severe physical harm if sex buyers or other dangerous individuals track her down. As the NCOSE Law Center stated in our response, she's not afraid of being blacklisted, she's afraid of being killed. Exactly. Exactly. It is absurd that the judge conceded to the defendant's apparently dishonest arguments, even after Jane Doe's attorneys explained the mischaracterization. Legal prostitution acting as a smokescreen. Survivors of sex trafficking are frequently granted pseudonymity when speaking out against their exploiters. So, how is this case any different? Because this abuse occurred behind the shield of legality. Just because it's legal in Nevada to operate a brothel doesn't mean everything that occurs within that brothel is lawful. The facts of Jane Doe's case clearly demonstrate violations of human rights and the law. In her decision, the judge drew the backward conclusion that since Jane Doe was sex trafficked in a legalized system, this somehow lessens her right to pseudonymity. The exact opposite should be true. If systemic abuse is occurring fueled by powerful public figures like Lance Gilman, Jane's need for protection is even greater. Survivors need your help. Jane Doe is being represented by the NCOSE Law Center attorneys and co-counsel Jason Guadaso, and our stance is firm. We refuse to submit to this unjust demand and put Jane Doe's safety at risk. We refuse to submit to a ruling that will silence survivors for decades or centuries to come. So they can legally put you over there in that, and they can threaten you, and you could be held there against your will and taken to that, and it's legal there, and you're stuck in that sex trafficking, whether or not that's legal or not, and that's illegally for them to take you against your will anyway. But they're doing that too. They're taking some people illegally and taking them over there, probably even kids behind the curtains. On Jane Doe's behalf, we are appealing this judge's abhorrent decision, and if the courts fail to see reason, then our public policy team will fight to change the laws to ensure it protects survivor plaintiffs' anonymity. We are pulling out all the stops to overturn this injustice, but it's going to be a long and dirty fight, and that's where you come in. Will you become a monthly donor to NCOSE, providing sustainable funding to see this fight through to finish line? It's going to end in one or two ways, with justice for Jane and security for all survivors, or with all survivors present and future being scared into silence. Please fight for the right for this to happen. Issues, prostitution, sex trafficking. So let's go on to here and see if anybody's had anything to say. Tate brothers sued her for telling the truth. Now she's fighting back. Trigger warning. The following article includes direct quotes from alleged sex traffickers, which are highly disturbing and sometimes graphic. My mic okay? Anybody hear me? So Jane Doe did the right thing, and for that, Andrew and Tristan Tate are suing her. Please help me get the word out about these. Yep, I can hear me. So Jane Doe did the right thing, and that Andrew and Tristan Tate are suing her. It all started when Jane Doe, a 20-year-old American woman, met Tristan Tate, brother and business partner of social media personality Andrew Tate. Tristan and Jane forged what she thought was a deep connection. He told Jane she was exactly the kind of woman he was looking for. Believing they were in love, Jane agreed to fly to Romania to live with Tristan. But when she arrived, she quickly realized things weren't right. Tristan put her in a house with several other women, most of whom were evidently creating content on OnlyFans. So I guess that's one of the bad places, OnlyFans. The women appeared malnourished, overworked, and unhappy. One of them told Jane that she feared for her life if she ever shared what she knew about the Tate brothers. Another woman said she had never been paid for the work she had done for the Tates. The terrifying truth slowly sunk in. Jane Doe had been lured into sex trafficking operation. 2E. Jane decided to flee the Tate's house in the middle of the night along with another woman desperate to escape. Meanwhile, she shared her fears with her parents and a friend, a United States Marine. As a soldier trained to spot signs of human trafficking, this brave Marine knew he had to call for help, even though Jane Doe was worried it would make things worse. The U.S. Embassy in Romania was called, and the next day, the Tate brothers' compound was raided by the Romanian authorities. Jane Doe and another woman, Mary Doe, was rescued. Jane Doe cooperated with the authorities in their investigation and described what she witnessed and experienced. It started over there in Romania. And now, because she did that, because she tried to help and did the right thing, the Tates have waged a campaign to ruin her life. Jane has been persecuted, harassed, and defamed in the most vile ways by the Tates. They have spread outrageous lies about her to the public. They have filed baseless lawsuits suing her and her parents for millions of dollars. To this day, Jane lives in hiding, terrified for her life if the Tates ever find her. But now, Jane is fighting back. Breaking news. This is from the National Center of Sexual Exploitation. The New York Times just reported that Jane Doe is suing Andrew and Tristan Tate in a U.S. civil lawsuit exposing their efforts to coerce, control, and silence her after she testified in Romania. This is the first. I'm trying to click on it to show more. Maybe it will show more. I don't know. Hope it don't get me to log in. Okay. This is the first U.S. lawsuit against the Tates, and it's a landmark case in the fight against sexual exploitation. NCOSE is proud to represent Jane Doe as she stands up against a campaign of harassment and intimidation. Powerful abusers and their enablers won't silence survivors. The fight for justice is here. Read more here. I don't know if it's going to let me read this article, but we'll see, right? So here it is where U.S. woman sues Tate brothers, saying they lured her to Romania. A woman who gave testimony to Romanian prosecutors accused Andrew and Tristan Tate in a lawsuit of conspiring to traffic her for sex work. The brothers have sued her for defamation. Andrew Tate is on the left, and Tristan arrived before a hearing court in Bucharest, Romania last month. This was February the 10th, 2025. An American woman accused the online influencers Tristan and Andrew Tate in a lawsuit on Monday of luring her to Romania, conspiring to coerce her into sex work, and defaming her after she gave testimony to the Romanian authorities. The civil complaint, the first suit filed in the United States against the Tate brothers, includes details about the accusations that led to their arrest in Romania in 2022, some of which have been kept confidential. The brothers have been battling cases in Romania as well as in Britain, including accusations of human trafficking, money laundering, and sex crimes. The Tate brothers, who are known for promoting an antagonistic, antagonistic, sorry, anti-feminist brand of masculinity, have vigorously denied all of the accusations against them, arguing that their wealth and outspokenness has made them targets. The brothers sued the woman who brought the suit, identified in court record documents as Jane Doe, for defamation in 2023, accusing her and another woman of conspiring to defraud and falsely imprison them by giving what they said was fabricated evidence to the Romanian authorities. That information, the brothers said, helped lead to their arrest on charges of trafficking and forming an organized crime group. The new complaint filed on Monday in circuit court in Palm Beach County, Florida, said the Tate's defamation lawsuit was part of a campaign to bully and harass Ms. Doe into recanting her testimony to the Romanian authorities. Mrs. Doe, 23, and her parents were granted anonymity by the court because of concerns over their safety. She feared being harmed by the Tate brothers or their followers, says Danny Quinter, a lawyer and a senior vice president at the National Center of Sexual Exploitation, who is representing the woman. Thank you so much for doing that, Danny. I look forward to my day in court where evidence and facts, not narratives, will decide the outcome, Ms. Doe said in a statement. Joseph D. McBride, a lawyer representing Andrew and Tristan Tate, said there was no evidence that his clients had engaged in human trafficking and that the truth was on their side. Of course, it's kind of hard to get the evidence, ain't it? When you don't, you kind of like clear your way, and you got authorities over there that's hiding things for you, the higher ups in a government, stuff like that. You know, they, there's ways that you hide it. How do you think so many are getting away with it? Because a lot of the people in the government areas are involved as well. The fact that these people are now doubling and tripling down on what is nothing more than an abject lie is absolutely hilarious, he said, adding that there's no chance in hell that they're going to win. Mrs. Doe was 20 when she first met Tristan Tate online in 2021, according to the complaint. Now be careful, who you meet online. Be careful, let your daughters know that, your sons know that, because it happens to men too. The two met up shortly after when he was visiting Miami for a work event, according to the complaint. And they became romantically involved. After Mr. Tate returned to Romania, he told her he had feelings for her and asked her to join him, it said. But after landing in Romania in 2022, Mrs. Doe said she felt the experience was not normal. Mr. Tate was rarely available and told her she could not have external friends. She lived with several other women, two of whom appeared to be working very long hours on OnlyFans, a platform known for adult content, the complaint said. She became concerned she was lured to Romania on false pretenses, the complaint said. Another woman in the home identified in the complaint as Mary Doe also moved to Romania in 2022, believing she was in a relationship with Andrew Tate. One of them was Tristan and the other one was Andrew. After she arrived in Romania, he restricted her movements, said she could not go out alone, and coerced her into having group sex with other women. Jane Doe's complaint says. He referred to Mary Doe as slave in some messages, the complaint said, and then another told her, your property owned by me. Well, you got the evidence right there, boys. What are you going to say? You actually got it. She got the evidence against you. So what you going to say, Tristan and Andrew? In their 2023 lawsuit against Jane Doe, the Tates pointed to closed circuit television footage that they said showed the two women freely entering and leaving the premises at their leisure. And they denied any involvement in human trafficking. Well, how do you know that they're freely leaving? You probably got them an assignment. They had to leave, and you probably said they freely leaving. They also pointed text message from Jane Doe to Mary Doe in which she appeared to discuss efforts to keep those guys in jail and their plans to write a movie together, according to a ruling last November that allowed the suit against Jane Doe to go forward. That exchange, Tate said in an amended complaint, proved that the women were conspiring to incarcerate them for financial gain and fame. Now, maybe it's to get their word out about you sickos, right? They had also cited messages in which Jane Doe appeared to tell a friend that she was able to leave and not contact the authorities. But Jane Doe said in her complaint that she and Mary Doe had wanted to escape to London first before reporting the criminal activity they had witnessed to the authorities. It was only after she shared her concerns with her parents and a friend in the U.S. Marine Corps that the U.S. Embassy in Romania received a report of an American in trouble. The complaint said the Romanian authorities, who were already investigating the Tate brothers, raided a compound that the Tates owned a week after her arrival, it added. So they were already under investigation. So what say you? In December 2022, the brothers were arrested on charges of human trafficking and forming an organized criminal group. This was before she ever came, right? December 2022. Since then, their legal team has been in a protracted battle over various accusations, custody arrangements, and the seizure of $1 million in assets. But when was that they met? When was it she met? What year was that? And she landed in Romania in 2022. Okay. All right. So, what Jane do? So, the brothers were arrested on charges of human trafficking and forming an organized criminal group. Since then, their legal team has been in a protracted battle over various accusations, custody arrangements, and the seizure of millions of dollars in assets. And the victory for the brothers, a Romanian court in December blocked the case against Andrew Tate from going to trial because it had found issues in the indictment, including that his right to a defense had been violated. The Romanian authorities are still investigating the brothers over separate allegations involving the trafficking of minors and money laundering. Once the Romanian cases are concluded, courts have ruled that the brothers will be extradited to Britain to face sex crimes there. Wow. Not only here, not only in Romania, but also in Britain. 4 British women have also sued Andrew Tate, claiming that he raped and abused them. Hmm. Very interesting. So be sure you share this with everyone. These sickos, they don't need to squash us. They don't need to sue. They don't have a right really to sue and to try to silence the victims. This is just wrong, and that's wrong of them wanting Jane Doe to give her identity out, where all these people could harm her and possibly kill her. So remember to keep these people in your thoughts and your prayers. They are strong for even coming forward on what had happened. May God bless each and every one of y'all. Thank you so much. And it's so good to see you, Carly. Thanks for coming, and thanks for everyone else who are here. We need to be advocates and make sure that the laws don't change. We need to be able to get justice for the victims who suffered these heinous crimes. Thank you. God bless.